Welcome, everybody. I am so excited to have Angela Cummings in the studio right now. We have this big ordeal coming up this Saturday, the Out of the Darkness Walk. It's been happening for a long time, but I am new to Springfield, so I can't wait to be a part of this. Now, suicide, in my opinion, is something that has kind of like a 6 degrees of separation. Everybody has been touched by it, so I can't wait to talk about it. Angela Cummings, the Associate Area Director of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Welcome. How are you?
I am good, and thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. Like I said, so many people feel so many different ways about suicide, and talking to somebody who's such a pro in the area is very, very important. And that's going to be something that people get a chance to do when they go, because you're going to be there at the walk. Now, I have some statistics in front of me that just blow my mind, and I just kind of want to read some of them off. Suicide, the 10th leading cause of death in the U.S. Insane. In 2019, 47,511 Americans died by suicide. And in 2019, there were an estimated 1.38 million suicide attempts. So the work you do is so important. I'd like to start real quick just by asking how you got into this work you do.
So I will say that I am a suicide loss survivor myself, and I lost my grandfather to suicide over 25 years ago. And then about 10 years ago, almost 11 years ago, my husband and I lost the man who was our best man at our wedding. So my husband's best friend.
Yeah.
And so that's 2 suicide losses. And so I'm very passionate about the work. I mean, this is my job, but it's also my passion because it has touched me, very closely twice now. And as you mentioned at the very beginning, and it's like the 6 degrees, I feel like suicide, unlike other types of losses, are like concentric circles of grief, right? And the way that I kind of think about it is, if I heard that really nice guy at the gym who used to take the Zumba class with me, suddenly died by a heart attack, I would feel, like bummed out and like, wow, he seems so healthy, and that, boy, that's a bummer. But I wouldn't feel like, wow, what should I have done?
Right.
What did I miss? What could I have done? How could I have helped him? And it's really interesting when someone dies by suicide, the way that an entire community is impacted. People who, as you mentioned, are 6 degrees away or even more think, how could that have happened? What did I miss? What could I personally have done to save this person's life? And it's unlike any other type of loss. So, we do say suicide can be prevented. And sometimes you do everything right and still you lose that person. It can be very complicated. The brain is our most complicated organ. It's not, a simple fix, but there are some things that we can do that can help a person in a moment of crisis and can save their life.
Yeah. Well, you talking about how it affects different people. I am in the rock and roll world, and we've lost a couple of people notably in the last years. And is it something that do you think people are born with kind of a predisposed thought process to get to that kind of thought where this is what I want to do, or is it something that people learn? What are your thoughts on that?
So that's a good question. And there are different factors that lead to someone, and making an attempt, for example. And what you're alluding to are health factors. And there can be health factors that do increase a person's risk for suicide. And those could be things like a history of mental health illness, for example. One of the most precipitating factors for a suicide attempt is a diagnosed mental health condition. So, for example, if you know that bipolar or depression run in your family, you are at an increased risk. Now, that doesn't mean that it's genetic. That doesn't mean that there's a genetic, like a hereditary risk for suicide. It just means that if your family has a history of mental health illness, it's something you're going to want to look at. It's one of those risk factors. And another risk factor, as you mentioned, could be environmental. So that could be, again, things like social determinants, poverty, discrimination, things like that are environmental factors that could lead you. Bullying, for example, would be an environmental factor.
Absolutely.
So definitely we have different spheres of things that could influence someone. Those are all just kind of under that umbrella of risk factors. Not one of those on its own means that you are just predisposed to being suicidal or making an attempt. It just means that you may have a heightened risk. You probably need to manage those things
Yeah.
a little bit more closely than someone who maybe doesn't have those risk factors.
Gotcha. Now I know that there are people, and this is kind of an off side question. There are people who think about assisted suicide, things like this. If people are in pain,
Mhm.
I'm wondering what the Foundation for Suicide Prevention thinks of that. If you guys have any kind of position on that,
Mhm.
because it's such a complex issue.
It is an extremely complex issue, and I will say that American Foundation for Suicide Prevention as an organization has not taken an official position on euthanasia or suicide
Right.
assisted death. I'm sure that just like a host of other issues, people within our organization are on both sides of the issue, would be my
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
Tangent to that, though, I can say that having a terminal illness or being in chronic pain is another one of those risk factors for suicide. Definitely.
Right.
When you're in a lot of pain, your brain starts thinking of just ways to escape the pain. And that can be physical pain if you are experiencing a terminal or chronic illness. And what people sometimes don't realize is it can be psychological pain too. So when a person makes an attempt, they're literally in so much pain that they can't think of another coping strategy at that moment.
Right. Right.
People tend to understand the physical and chronic pain a little bit more. They can understand. Everybody's can go back to the most painful experience in their life and sort of empathize with how clouded your thinking is and how you're
Yeah. Do
not making
anything
good
to,
decisions.
right.
But people who have serious mental health illnesses, it's just as painful to them as a physical pain is to someone who's broken their leg or
Yeah.
whatnot. So.
Well, absolutely. Well, that's why these kinds of events are so important. Again, Angela Cummings, Associate Area Director, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Tell me a little bit about this walk. I know it's been happening for years, but again, I'm the new guy here, so I'm excited to hear about what's to be expected by everybody who goes.
So yes, we're so glad to be back in person. Last year was not the best time to be having in-person events. We were
I
able to
don't know what you mean.
we were able to have
What
a little
happened?
I don't know what happened. Did something happen? We were able to have a little packet pickup and we were able to get together a little bit at the park, but it just wasn't the same. And yes, these walks have been going on for a long time, and they're just a great community event, a place for people to really come and feel welcomed. We definitely have suicide loss survivors there. Lots of people there who have lost
Huge.
loved ones. That definitely makes up a huge part of it, and those people have been coming for years, and that's actually how the walks started. In more recent years, that umbrella has expanded, and we now have lots and lots of people who are just on their own mental health journey and they want to celebrate
Yeah.
where they
Yeah.
are and that they're doing great and that they're getting help and they're taking their medication and they're doing great. And sometimes there's good days and sometimes there's bad days, but they want to come out to an event where everybody understands how
Yeah.
important mental health is. And then we have a lot of people just in education and mental health and medicine in general, people who again have been touched pretty
Yeah.
closely by the issue and want to just be out there and support everybody feeling comfortable talking about mental health, getting
Yes.
the help they need. So it's a really nice big community event.
Well, like you said at the beginning, the bereavement for this kind of thing is different, totally different than, a grandmother dying or something like that, or even, somebody dying not through suicide. So I'm so glad that they have that outlet there to be able to talk about that. Before we let you go, I know you're a busy lady and we'll be talking to you more this weekend, but I just wanted to get an idea if there's, what are ways we can help friends that we might know deal with some of this stuff. What are ways we can reach out to them and help them in a safe way?
I definitely think people are afraid to ask the questions, and people definitely are afraid to ask like the direct questions. And I get it, man, it's hard.
Right.
Actually, we have a whole website that we've partnered with the Jed Foundation and the Ad Council. It's called Seize the Awkward, and people can just go to seizetheawkward.org, and that'll take you right to their site. And it's like little vignettes where you can learn how to start conversations that just seem so awkward. Like, how would I ever say this to someone? How could I ever ask this to someone?
Yeah.
So I definitely recommend just going to seizetheawkward.org if you are needing to start that conversation.
Mhm.
But again, just starting the conversation, letting them know that you're non-judgmental, that you're there to help, that you're in it to win it. You're going to
Yeah.
stick with them, take them where they need to go if they need help. Really, a person who's in crisis just needs to feel that they're not going to be judged
Mhm.
and that someone is going to listen and understand. And really just being present is really one of the most important things you can do for someone who may be struggling.
Awesome. Well, great words. This is the Out of the Darkness Walk this Saturday, October 16th, Southwind Park, Hope Pavilion in Springfield. Registration is one of my favorite words, free. It is free. You just have to go to afsp.org/Springfield IL, and you can register there. Can people go up to the event and register same day?
Absolutely. We do have on-site registration, and we're even going to have some QR codes around in case people really want to stay separated. We're really trying to make this event very safe still, keep people a little more separated, so a little less hands-on than we have been in past years. So I want people to know that they can feel safe coming, kind of keep their distance if that's how they feel. But definitely you can register on-site. No registration fee required. Donations always accepted.
Yes.
Lots of free resources and just lots of like hugs and community. So I hope that people will come out if they feel compelled to, or if you've got nothing better to do, we're going to have a good time out there. So
it is going to be a good time. Angela, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us here at QLZ. I could spend hours talking about this with you, as I'm sure you could, because it's such an important subject. So thank you for all of the work that you do, and we can't wait to see you out at the walk.
Great. See everybody there, hopefully.